let's look at how you can filter your visuals based on the values of the individual data points within that visual. One of the things that Power BI always does is aggregates a set of columns by a set of groups. So for this visual here, I'm looking at our units column aggregated by the month name. So over on the left-hand side, you can see my individual rows of data underpinning this. So I can see that we had one transaction where we sold this product in this zip code on this date for a total of 68 units. And what we're doing is summing up that units column grouped by each of the different month names in this date field. So I can see that in March we had just over 8,000 units sold, January and February were much lower, just over 4,000. And I can filter this visual down if I want to. So I come down to the filters pane, I can see there are two filters that get added automatically because these are the two fields that I'm using in my visual. So I've already got month name and units in my fields well, so these filters get populated for me. And when I start using this units filter, I can choose to say show data points or show items when the value is less than a certain amount. So let's say I only want to see items where the value is less than 6,000. This is just going to show me January and February. At the moment, this is what we call a measure filter. We're filtering the month name items, i.e. each month, where the measure, the units, is less than 6,000. Let's clear that one out now. We're talking about the aggregated value here. So the aggregated value, 4,000, 4,400, 8,500, etc. We're not talking about the individual values in the underlying rows. If I wanted to filter down here and say, I only want to see transactions where we had more than 10 units sold at once, I can't just say, show items where it's greater than 10, because at an aggregated level, they're all greater than 10. They're all greater than 4,000. If I wanted to do filters on that individual column, on individual values in that column, I need to grab my units field and drag that in as an extra filter in here. You'll see now I get a couple of different types of filter. It's advanced filter. I can do a basic filter where I can go and select the individual values that I want, or I can do a top type filter. Let's stick with advanced. What we're now doing is saying go for each of the different rows in the underlying data, go and apply this filter condition, and then show me the results. So here, if I was to say I only want to see items where the value is greater than or equal to 10, it's going to just filter down to these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows, and then aggregate them up to the monthly level. So we'll see a much smaller number. You can see there's that 68 number from January. I've got 29 in March. That's adding a couple of these two together, I think. In May, we just had one sale for 10 units. And for June, we had a couple that have been aggregated up. So you can see we've got two different types of filters here. One that's applying at the aggregated level and one that's applying on the individual rows of data underneath that. So for simple bar charts like this, that's how those filters get applied. We do something slightly different for tables and for matrices. Let's take a look at our matrix. Let's take our year field and put that onto the columns. Let's take a look at our product categories. And again, we'll show our revenue amounts. I'm going to just clear that filter on 2016 so I can see for both years. Now when I come here, I can see I've used the category, the year, and the revenue in my fields well, so I get those three automatically generated filters down here too. The trick is that here, now when I'm filtering on revenue, this filter is actually being applied across the whole of this row. So the totals that you're filtering here or the values that you're filtering is actually whatever's in this total row. So if I was going to say, I only want to see things where the values are greater than 50 million, that'll just give me that one row for the urban category. So it's important to understand in this matrix type visual, our visual level filters are applying across the total for the whole row in that visual. Finally, let's talk about how this applies for visuals that have a drill hierarchy in them. Let's add a new bar chart here, and I'll put the date field into here and our unit sales. So we can see that at the highest level in 2015 and 2016, we had about 80,000 units in 2015 and about 40,000 in 2016. If I came to my filters and started using a measure filter on units here, what I'll be doing is saying, not at the highest level, but at the very lowest level of this drill hierarchy, do individual days in this case have greater or less than whatever value? And the reason that we do this is so that data doesn't start appearing or disappearing as you drill through. For example, if I said I only want to see things where I had greater than a 40,000 unit sales, well, of course, here at the year level, everything's greater than 40,000. But when I drill down into an individual day, we didn't have any days when we had 40,000 units sold. So data would start disappearing as I do my drill. So what we actually do is apply it at the lowest level and then aggregate up. And so actually, you'll see if I apply this filter, we don't get any data because there were no days when we had greater than 40,000 sales. If I take a look at a smaller number, maybe 400, we'll start to see some data pop in. So there are some days in our data where we had more than 400 units sold. And the aggregate of those days in 2015 was 16,000 units. So let's drill down just into 2015. I can see they were across all of those quarters. Let's drill down again. I can see most of those did, there are some of those that did happen in January. Actually, we can see that all of those sales where at a transaction level we sold more than 400 units, they all happened on the 31st of January. So you can see we're applying that filter right down at the lowest level and then aggregating up. And that order of operations is important to determine the visual, the results that you'll actually see in your visual. So that's a bit of detail on just how filters, particularly filters that apply on your measures, are calculated and evaluated across Power BI visuals.